Okay, I see it blinking, so it must be recording.
All right.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Kuljeet. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation for this interview. Los Altos Residents is an organization of neighbors who care about the city and whose mission is to ensure that every resident's voice is heard by City Council, the commissions, and city staff. We are very pleased to get an opportunity to know you better and to learn more about why you're running for City Council. I just want to spend a minute going over the ground rules of these interviews. This will be the first of 6 interviews. All 7 candidates had accepted Los Altos residents' invitation to be interviewed. However, Sally Meadows just emailed me to let me know she has decided not to accept our invitation after all. Each candidate will be asked the same questions. All of the questions were sent to each of you prior to the interview. We will post unedited videos of the interviews on our website, losaltosresidents.org, so that everyone will have an opportunity to see them.
Okay.
During this challenging time with the COVID-19 shelter in place, when traditional in-person debates and small neighborhood meetings are discouraged, we want to help voters learn more about each candidate through this series of interviews. Thank you. Now, Kuljeet, would you please take a minute to introduce yourself before the first question?
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Kuljeet Kalkat. I'm a longtime resident, about 30 some years in Los Altos. I came here to work for Sun Microsystems in 1989. Got married, raised a family of 2, and my kids are in their 20s. And we have had an incredible life in Los Altos.
Okay, wonderful. So the first question is, in your role as a resident and an appointed city official, what are your most significant contributions to the community?
Okay, significant is a little bit of a subjective term, but I would say, I think my first connection to the city and the contribution to the community would be about early 90s. My wife and I bought a small business in town and ran that for about a decade, the Cranberry Scoop, and that's when we sort of really realized how much being a small business owner in town actually was not just about the revenue of that to the city, but also the character that the town has and the community sense we got from it, the people we got to know, the appreciation we got for being part of an integral part of a town came from really that time. I was still working in tech, but I would help my wife on the weekends and evenings and stuff, and really got to know a lot of people in that time. Recently, of course, in the last 4 to 5 years, I've been on the Finance Commission, and when we started off, the Finance Commission was a little sleepy because our finances were okay, but the last couple of years, our finances have been a little bit tricky, and I think we should anticipate a couple of more tough years ahead. So understanding our city's finances obviously is something that I think I could bring to the council.
Okay, so what are your priorities and what will you do to make sure they are accomplished?
Yes, so naturally, I think one of my main priorities is to be a good fiduciary of the city's finances and bring stability to our finances. We are in a period of higher than normal expenditures on capital infrastructure. We're in a period of higher than normal revenue reduction because of COVID. And we have some other unexpected expenses also coming our way. So just being being able to sort of think through those things and help the council guide through those decisions, which are definitely coming our way, is something that I could help with. That's a priority. I also think related to that is really try to be a collaborative force on the council. I fully believe that my leadership style is more to sort of leverage the strength of everyone and bring out the best in terms of being a somewhat centrist in our goals and reach compromises, which is what we need on our council in some ways. I feel that I think we're a little bit of a split council now, and that's not good for the city in any way at all. And then lastly, particularly now in times of COVID, I'm very concerned and want to do what we can to support our small businesses. Like I said, I think it's not just for the business, it's also the fact that they are the town character, they bring the charm and the personality to the town.
Okay, thank you. So with respect to financial demands, when they exceed, the financial demands of Los Altos exceed the available and projected public funds, what factors will you consider in allocating these funds to the competing demands?
Yeah, so, this is like anything else. I mean, this is how you would do for your own house, I mean, as your own family, I mean, this is fairly straightforward, but hard to perhaps implement. Um, if you're going to have a shortfall, you have to sort of think about protecting essential services first. We want to make sure the safety and security of the residents is important. And then, so that sort of gives you an idea of where you would sort of try to cut the least. And the second after that is really, we're concerned about the revenue shortfall, as your question says, is to put priority on providing services that continue to support the growth or support a revenue coming in. So if the city can do something to make sure that our planning department and building department stay open to be able to get the permit revenue, encourage and support towns, businesses to continue to support sales tax coming in, that would be sort of obviously the second place. And then, of course, there'll be sort of further down the road will be things that perhaps we can think about cutting. So there's definitely a way to think about this. I think that could apply well to a city, just like you would to your own personal finances if you're in a crisis.
Thank you. There are financial instruments available for cities to raise funds without prior voter approval. What is your position on having Los Altos use this type of financing? And if you would vote for the council to do so, please describe one or two instances where you feel it would be appropriate.
Yes. So yes, this was actually something we had to deal with for the community center. So I'll answer my question by giving you that example. Yes, like you said, that the city is allowed, the council is allowed to raise money by getting a loan for a project like that. And generally speaking, I would be cautious about any kind of debt the city incurring, just because we are a town that sort of lives on fixed income, because we have a pretty steady but nice property tax revenue, but we don't have big upswings in sales tax or opportunities for big corporations moving here. We don't have opportunities for large hotels or things. So things are not going to change that much. We're going to have a pretty steady income for the foreseeable future. So from that perspective, I would say it's not that good an idea for the city to sort of look at financing through debt. Anything more than a large capital infrastructure project. The only reason I would support a debt on that one is that generally if it's a project that the benefit of that is going to be for the next 50 years to the residents of Los Altos, then it's somewhat understandable that over the decades, some of those residents will also pay for the services, that the benefit they're going to get from that building. So that's the only rationale I can think of where I can say, okay, I can understand that this is a large, one-of-a-kind project. Let's finance some of this through debt because it will be paid by the residents who enjoy it over time.
Okay, thank you. I want to go now to local zoning and development questions. Do you believe that the current building codes for the various zones, commercial, residential, mixed commercial and neighborhood, especially those related to building height and density, are appropriate for Los Altos?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not on the planning commission, and I think there are a lot of very smart people who've been thinking and talking about this for many years now. Things have gone up and down in height in Los Altos over the few years. So obviously this is a contentious topic. I believe that, there are some commercial zones where, I think that having more higher, taller buildings does make sense because the land is expensive. We're in one of the most expensive areas in the world for any kind of land. I don't have a strong opinion whether it should be 35 feet or 45 feet or not. But I believe that that I think in some areas we have to kind of face the reality of the growth, that our town to remain relevant, our town to remain dynamic, has to absorb and move along in terms of bringing in vitality. That some of those buildings, et cetera, being a little taller will help. I think the shape of El Camino is changing forever. We know that, and being able to provide some nice housing on El Camino is not a bad idea. The downtown vision plan that got approved by the council unanimously as a direction and a vision allows for taller buildings, and perhaps that's not a bad thing also. Beyond that, I don't think we really, we're a residential community, we're a suburban community. I don't think any taller buildings would sort of lend themselves very well to the character of the town.
Okay, thank you. What is your position, pro or con, with respect to Senate Housing Bills SB 1120 and SB 902?
Yeah, one of the two of the several dozen bills that the Sacramento is trying to fix the housing crisis with. 1120, I believe, says that any single family home can be converted into a duplex, which would be a pretty dramatic change for Los Altos. So these are, I think, these are measures being introduced in Sacramento to see if those things can actually apply to suburbia, like they do to cities like San Francisco. So if you see a nice, big, beautiful Victorian building downtown somewhere in San Francisco, you think it's a nice building, but when you look at it closely, it's actually been broken into 4 duplexes. So what they've done is by developing design criteria and design essentials that sort of say that these buildings to kind of fit into the character of the street or the town, being able to sort of build denser housing in those areas by allowing those things that look like single family homes to function as duplexes, etc. So I hope that the 1120 and things like that keep that in mind, that if we have a dire need for housing, we don't necessarily have to do that at sort of a drastic step where we're living next to high rises or anything like that. So that does so cities should have and I hope that 1120 I think does allow the cities to have some design criteria that can be applied as part of the zoning. We don't know where this is going to go. I thought the SB 899 would pass, frankly. That was a bill that said, was very actually supported by a few churches in our town also, which said that churches have big parking lots. They have a lot of daycare and schools, etc. So would it be okay if they also built a few multi-unit houses on them to house some of their people from their parish? That kind of, I thought, had a lot of support, but that went away. We know SB 50 didn't make it. I'm not exactly sure if SB 1120 in its current form will make it. And the reason I think is because maybe it's hard for Sacramento to come up with sort of one formula that can sort of really apply. But I think we can, as a geography, as a Bay Area, we could perhaps come up with a housing shortage answer. I think it's not. I know I would want my daughter's a school teacher. I would want my daughter to be able to live in Los Altos if she was a Los Altos school teacher. She cannot, I think our safety services people should be able to live in town if they can, but they cannot. I think some of our people who provide all the services to us cannot live in Los Altos. It's kind of, I feel that yes, affordable housing or being able to have people of multiple incomes, various incomes to be able to live together is a nice goal, it's a good goal, but the question is that I think structurally, maybe Los Altos itself alone cannot solve that problem, and Sacramento can't quite make up a one recipe that will work for everybody. But maybe between Los Altos, the Los Altos School District, between Mountain View, Sunnyvale, we can all come together and come up with some solutions that bring some affordable housing to the area that kind of makes sense. I think there's a BMR building in Mountain View that just got approved that's going in, that hopefully will help school teachers in Los Altos as well. So those are the kind of things that I think could actually end up eventually solving our problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I want to ask you one of the hot topic questions. Are you in favor of defunding the Los Altos Police Department? And please explain your answer in as much detail as possible.
I'm not in favor of defunding the police department. I'm not exactly sure how, what that actually means, frankly. I am definitely in favor of the police having accountability, police having good records, police having, I don't believe that our police department is, explicitly racist or doing anything wrong. I do believe that we all have implicit biases. We all have biases that come out. So particularly someone in public service, someone in such an important position as a police, somebody who's authorized to use all our force. If they have those biases, then I think they can actually work on them. And I think our police department would be willing to work on those things. That would be really good. So I think those kind of things are kind of more important steps than defunding the police.
Thank you. How would you define a resident-friendly candidate?
I think, like the term says, somebody who is representing the view of the town, or somebody who actually has a good feel for what the town is, and not just in the past, but where it's going. I'm actually quite excited that in my campaign I have 3 people who are under 30. So, and they want to help with Los Altos, and because, it's their inheritance, it's their heritage, and they have a point of view on it, frankly. So I think a resident-friendly candidate in my mind would be somebody who can sort of understand the perspective of not just, where we came from, but where we're going as well.
Okay. What would you do as an individual council member to keep current with the wants and needs of the Los Altos voters?
I'm actually trying to figure this out. I mean, we can't go door to door. We can't leave materials outside. It's getting pretty tricky, to actually even sort of meet people on the street. You can't have a coffee in your yard with more than 6 people. These are tough times. I'm very open and very social. I meet a lot of people. My wife is a realtor in town who has she knows a lot of people and very gregarious, very open-hearted people. But this is it, you and me over a wire. That's how this is happening. I hope it gets better, and I hope we can get out there. I'm very open to meeting people and understanding what they're saying. Well,
I want to just ask you to just clarify and dig a little deeper on that one, because it's going to be extremely important to be able to talk to people, find out what they want, find out what residents really want in this town.
Yeah. So, so on a serious note, of course, there are technologies we can use, etc. I think we need to have, we're going to have to embrace some of those. These Zoom meetings that we're doing, etc. seem to work quite well. I mean, they're not that onerous, and I think it also is actually somewhat, in some ways, more convenient. We can actually have a face-to-face call much faster, and without having to get in a car and go and meet someone. So yes, maybe this is a change for the better, and it will help. I think as a council, though, I do know that they have some open hours, etc., for meeting residents, because it is still a volunteer position. I mean, people have a working life and still do this in the evenings, kind of stuff. So it's a little tough. But I would say having a more of an open door policy is actually something that would actually be something I'd be very much in support of. I do see some people do this more than others. Some council members have more, give more time and are available for, but I would do that. I would certainly do that. If I was going to be on the council, I would be very open to having more of an open door, open hours policy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I wanted to ask you, are you satisfied with the level of transparency within Los Altos city government? And if not, what would you do to improve it?
I'm assuming the level of transparency is exactly what the law requires. I hope we don't. I'm not aware of any situation where there's some sort of a conspiracy to hide things. I do believe that I think the use of closed sessions too frequently is not good for a city. We have quite a few closed sessions. We had one yesterday. I believe that I think there should be even voluntarily an effort made by the council that if they have a closed session, that within 24, 48 hours, they actually do output some summary of that so that we are aware that, okay, we were not there to listen to the whole thing and they were able to have a free and open conversation. They were able to have client privilege, attorney-client privilege or whatever. But I believe that output from that should come out every 24, 48 hours. There should not be just an empty hole. So from that perspective, I do believe that having more transparency will help and is important.
Okay. Please describe what you believe the proper relationship between the council and the city manager should be.
So my understanding, is we are a city that has elected to have a government system that says we elect a council. And the council then has legislative authority and no executive role. And we hire a city manager who runs the executive, who runs the city. So we've chosen that as a small city that we actually have a hired executive staff, the city manager, sort of like a CEO, then they hire specialists in each area. And the council is like a board that actually does overseeing of the city manager and staff, but is not involved in a day-to-day function. So we're not looking for council members who are experts in policy or experts in housing or experts in this and that. We're looking for people who can actually govern and build accountability, make sure there are right processes, and they're hiring the right people to do the right jobs. So I believe, if that's the model we have, and I think that works for most towns, and it has worked for us. I believe we can make that work. That does mean that the city manager has more responsibility to communicate functioning of the city more broadly, and the onus goes on the city manager. Like you would go to any board meeting, the presentations are usually done by the CEO or the staff, not the council, not the board. I think our city manager and the departments need to come out forward and speak a little bit more in our council meetings.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask you, what's your position regarding the use of city parks and/or the use of city-sponsored art for political ends?
City parks for city-sponsored art for political ends.
Well, either city parks or political art, city-owned political art for political ends.
So I'm trying to understand this question actually. So this has to do with this issue that has come up with this Black Lives Matter campaign that wants to do art in the park. Is that what you're referring to?
That's one example. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that played out perhaps the way was necessary too, which is that we sort of tried to understand that there is a arts commission that has to sort of understand and apply some policies to this thing and take it to the council if it needs to, or just to make a decision there and then work with the staff. So there, we need to. The commission and the city has rules and requirements that have to be met. There are safety requirements. There are general rules about what is considered appropriate or acceptable, and those need to be applied to pretty much everything that we can actually allow in our parks.
Okay, thank you. What's your position regarding funding offers from private groups who wish to alter a city park so as to facilitate a particular activity favored by the group? And in your mind, does it make any difference whether the funding is partial or full? And does it make any difference whether the group attaches conditions to their offer?
Yeah, this I think is actually a larger fundamental issue uh, as to cities' assets and the city's functioning, and how much of a public-private partnership we want, and how much of influence comes with the public-private partnership. So it's a pretty, to some level, it can be a slippery slope. So I think that's why you don't see most cities go in this direction. And I think we should also be cautious about it. You know, it is a shared asset of all the residents of the town. You know, when we're talking about public property, so having just one particular person or an entity say they want to use it in a particular way and they'll pay for it, does not sit well with me. I think it has to be, you know, they can contribute to a general fund, and the city can have discretion of what they want to do with their money, which is great, you know, if you want to contribute to the city. But I think to be able to say that I will give you X dollars if you do this to this park or to this building, sounds like we are giving up our right to run the city as a collective.
Thank you. All right. I believe this is the last question. How do you feel about the proposed REACH codes and the manner in which the Environmental Commission, the city staff, and the city council have moved this item along towards a scheduled vote next month?
Yeah, so you know, the REACH codes, I think Roberta and I spoke about this just a week ago. I believe, you know, I think we're a very affluent city. We have, you know, we are people who have a very high carbon footprint because we have our consumption levels much higher than everybody else. You know, I have family in different parts of the world who are quite well off, but I can, you know, just tell you from just the fact that we live here, we are a much more larger contributor to in our carbon footprint than them by far. So yes, we do have some sort of responsibility to make sure that we do our part for the climate, etc. And REACH codes perhaps is you know, is something in that direction. So I can see supporting that. The REACH codes themselves are kind of the ones that are being proposed are fairly minor in my mind. I mean, if you think of it, I mean, they're saying only new houses have to apply to this code. By that, you know, there are 10,000 homes in Los Altos, and if only about 20 of them have to change because of this, that's because less than 20 new houses are built in Los Altos every year. It would take 500 years for us to get an all-electric city, you know, so it's not a, you know, it's not a huge REACH code. I mean, it seems like almost a gesture or a message that we are pro-climate, but it doesn't feel like, I think it has any kind of dramatic, it doesn't have any impact. So if they were sincere about having an impact on climate and making sure we did something, it would be a little bit more severe than that. It is going to have a minor impact on the city, you know, so for that perspective, I'm in favor of this of the REACH codes. I think somebody building a new house can actually afford the delta. Most houses we sell are like $5 million plus. So if their cost went up by $10,000, I'm not sure they're going to worry. I'm not familiar, frankly, to the environmental commissions pushing this one way or the other, so I can't really comment on that. And I know it's up for a vote, but I was not sure if that was slowed down or faster. Actually, I was not aware of that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Kuljeet. Okay. Would you like to make just one closing statement for us?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate these are very thoughtful questions. You know, it's amazing to to see so many residents who put in so much time and energy into considering everything. You know, when I thought about running, I thought, well, you know, it's a volunteer position. It turns out it's quite a, and I will take it very seriously. You know, I feel very passionate about my town. I love the city. I've lived there for 30 some years. You know, I feel like I belong. I want to give back. I have a very nice connection to it. I want my children and everybody else to have the same life that I've had in Los Altos. So I want to do my part to preserve the heritage of this town. And I would do my best to be a good council member and listen to the citizens.
Okay, well, thank you so very, very much, Kuljeet.
Sure.
We very much appreciate your time. Take care, and we'll see you soon, okay?
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.